The cinema has always captivated audiences with spectacular action scenes, frantic chases, and breathtaking falls. But while the stars shine under the spotlight, there is a category of professionals that remains in the shadows: stunt performers. They are the ones who make the impossible seem possible, but the price to pay for this illusion can be much higher than one might imagine. Behind the scenes, away from the cameras, there are stories that rarely come to light, accidents that are silenced, contracts that obscure the truth, and some deaths that simply disappear from official records. Over the years, countless film productions have been marked by tragedies involving stunt performers, some quickly forgotten, others covered up with official versions that do not withstand closer scrutiny. But how far is the industry willing to go to maintain its untouchable image? And what really happens when a stunt performer becomes a problem for a major studio? Welcome to another night where mysteries never sleep. I am Midnight, and this is 7 Nights. Before we begin, I'd like to ask for your help. Like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's just one click, but it makes a huge difference in helping YouTube deliver these videos to more people and allowing me to keep bringing this content to you. I'm counting on you. Let's get into the video. When you watch an action movie, what catches your attention the most? Explosions? Chases? Unbelievable jumps? Now stop and think. Who is really risking their life to make these scenes happen? The answer is not the lead actor, nor the director, it's the stunt performers. And the darkest part of this story, when something goes wrong, the public almost never hears about it. Hollywood has built an empire on the idea that everything can be done safely. But does this safety really exist? Every year, stunt performers suffer serious injuries on film sets. Some even lose their lives. Yet these stories rarely reach the public. How is that possible? Simple: confidentiality agreements, information manipulation, and in extreme cases, the complete rewriting of the official narrative. Few people know this, but the history of cinema is filled with tragedies involving stunt performers. During the filming of Top Gun, 1986, Art Scholl, an experienced pilot hired to perform aerial maneuvers, lost control of his plane and crashed into the Pacific Ocean. His body was never found. The movie was released as planned, and his death was only briefly mentioned in footnotes. Now think about this. If this happened to an experienced professional, how many other cases may have been erased without anyone noticing? And what happens when a stunt performer doesn't die, but is left with permanent injuries? These cases are also hidden because they expose something Hollywood doesn't want you to see: the fragility behind perfection. David Holmes, Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double in Harry Potter, was left paraplegic after a safety cable failed during a scene. He had been the lead double for the protagonist since the first film. But after the accident, he was replaced and production continued as usual. The question that no one asks is, how do these dangerous scenes keep happening without stricter measures being taken? The reason is simple. For studios, it's cheaper to risk an accident than to delay a multi-million-dollar production. Stunt performers are not treated like stars. They are replaceable parts. If one gets hurt, another takes their place. And if one dies, well, there are many ways to ensure that no one ever finds out. Now we enter an even more sensitive topic: the disappearance of information. Some productions have been plagued by an absurd number of accidents, yet only a few ever become public knowledge. During the filming of Mad Max, Fury Road, for example, reports indicate that multiple stunt performers suffered severe injuries. Officially, there were only a few minor incidents. But who decides what is minor and what isn't? Modern technology also plays a role in this story. With digital effects and deepfake technology, studios can replace faces, recreate bodies, and even remove a person entirely from a scene. Now imagine this: a stunt performer dies during filming, but their scene has already been recorded. What stops the studio from simply using CGI to replace their face and moving forward with the film as if nothing happened? After all, who in the audience would notice the difference? This is where we step into an even darker territory. Rumors suggest that some productions have had multiple stunt performers injured or killed, but the records were concealed to protect the film's box office revenue. The logic is cruel but makes sense. A movie marked by tragedy could have its reputation ruined, meaning a loss of money. So, if a studio can ensure that the public never knows what happened, why wouldn't they? But what about colleagues? Why does no one speak out? The answer lies in the contracts. Before stepping onto a set, stunt performers sign agreements that prevent them from suing studios, or revealing behind-the-scenes information. Anyone who breaks this confidentiality may never work in the industry again. So, even if a professional witnesses something wrong, the fear of being blacklisted keeps them silent. Some stories are so absurd that they seem unreal. In Deadpool 2, stunt performer Joy Harris suffered a fatal accident while filming a motorcycle scene. Reports suggest she lacked the necessary experience for the type of maneuver required, yet she was placed in the scene anyway. The studio claimed that safety protocols were followed, but then comes the question, if everything was so safe, why didn't she survive? The most terrifying part is that this question never has a clear answer. Whenever an accident happens, blame is placed on chance, human error, or even the stunt performer themselves. But is that really the case? If studios truly cared about safety, why do we still see so many cases like these? The truth is that movie magic has a price, and the ones paying it are not the millionaire stars or the celebrated directors. It's the stunt performers. They're the ones who fall, who take real risks, but who, at the end of the day, remain invisible. The general public never hears their stories because the industry operates in a way that ensures that the less a problem is discussed, the easier it is to pretend it doesn't exist. And now I ask you, how many stunt performers have lost their lives so you could watch a perfect action scene? Hollywood is a world of illusions. The audience sees breathtaking action scenes, heart-stopping chases, and spectacular explosions. But no one stops to think about what happens when something goes wrong. And what if I told you that there are cases where stunt performers lost their lives on set, only for everything to be quietly covered up? If major studios can manipulate narratives in films, what's stopping them from doing the same in reality? Fatal accidents in the film industry are more common than we think, but we only hear about those that couldn't be hidden. In Twilight Zone, the movie 1983, a helicopter scene ended in tragedy. Actor Vic Morrow and 2 children were struck by the aircraft's blades after an uncontrolled explosion. The incident was a scandal, but what few people know is that, even before the tragedy, there were reports that the production was ignoring safety regulations. Now, if that case is already shocking, imagine how many deaths were never revealed. Studios have a clear interest in ensuring that these stories don't tarnish their productions. A stunt performer's death can mean lower box office sales, media controversy, and multi-million-dollar lawsuits. To avoid that, the simplest solution is often to silence the story before it ever becomes public. That appears to be exactly what happened during the filming of Resident Evil, the final chapter, 2016. Stunt woman Olivia Jackson suffered a brutal motorcycle accident and lost an arm. What shocked many wasn't just the accident itself, but what happened afterward. The studio simply abandoned her. No fair compensation, no support. To the production, she became a problem to be forgotten. And when a fatal accident happens, how do studios handle it? The answer is disturbing. They often simply pretend it never happened. Stunt performers can be replaced without the audience ever noticing. Confidentiality agreements ensure that family members and colleagues don't expose the truth. And if necessary, technology can be used to erase any trace that a person was ever on set. With advances in CGI and deepfake technology, it is now possible to recreate any face and replace any person. This means that if a stunt performer dies during filming, studios have the ability to redo parts of the movie without ever having to reveal what happened. Now think carefully, if this technology already exists, what's stopping Hollywood from using it to cover up tragedies? The case of Joy Harris, the stunt woman who died while filming Deadpool 2, raises even more questions. The production claimed it was just an accident, but reports indicate that she didn't have enough experience for the maneuver she was asked to perform. If that's true, then her death was a serious failure on the production's part, something no one would want to admit. And how many other cases may have been disguised in the same way? If there are still doubts about how these stories can be manipulated, just remember what happened in The Expendables 2, 2012. During filming, an explosion killed one stunt performer and severely injured another. The case was reported, but the production quickly downplayed the tragedy and moved on. No in-depth investigation, no major repercussions, just another unfortunate incident. But was that really all it was? And now we enter an even darker area. There are rumors of films where more than one stunt performer died, yet the records were erased. Witnesses disappear, contracts ensure silence, scenes are res hot, and in the end, no one ever finds out what really happened. After all, Those who control the information have the power to define what is reality and what is forgotten. If a studio is willing to invest millions to keep its reputation untarnished, why would it let an inconvenient detail, like a death, interfere with its profits? All it takes is rewriting the story, hiding the right facts, and if necessary, paying to make sure no one speaks about it. And if all of this sounds like a conspiracy theory, just look at the patterns. Why are so many severe accidents involving stunt performers treated as insignificant? Why do these stories disappear so quickly? And most importantly, how many of these tragedies could have been prevented if studios cared more about safety than profit? At the end of the day, the real question is, if stunt performers can be easily replaced on screen, does the industry see them as nothing more than disposable parts? And when a stunt performer dies, what's stopping Hollywood from simply moving on and making sure no one ever finds out? What happens when a stunt performer suffers a serious accident but survives? If you imagine that studios provide support, medical assistance, and fair compensation, you are very mistaken. In most cases, the response is quite different: silence, isolation, and an unspoken threat that it's better not to talk about what happened. Few people know this, but the film industry is protected by extremely strict contracts. Before even stepping onto a set, stunt performers are required to sign documents that limit their rights. In many cases, these contracts prohibit any legal action against the production company, even if the accident was caused by negligence. This means that if a studio fails to ensure safety and a stunt performer suffers a permanent injury, they may not even have the right to seek compensation. These agreements also include confidentiality clauses. Stunt performers who witness accidents, or who suffer one, are often barred from giving interviews or disclosing any details about what really happened. If they break this rule, they can be sued and, worse, blacklisted from the industry. Hollywood has a long history of shutting doors on those who speak out. A case that exposes this reality involved Julie Johnson, a stunt performer who worked on various action films. After an accident that nearly left her paralyzed, she tried to seek her rights. But what happened? The production company's lawyers bombarded her with legal threats, while her career came to an abrupt end. Without work, without support, and without a means of income, she was forced to accept a confidential settlement in exchange for never mentioning the incident again. This raises an important question. Why do so many victims agree to stay silent? The answer lies in the power studios have over these professionals' careers. A famous actor can afford to expose behind-the-scenes issues and still get hired. But a stunt performer? If they're seen as a problematic worker, they simply won't be hired again. And it's not just the studios that apply this pressure. The stunt industry itself is closed off and hierarchical. Questioning safety standards can be seen as a sign of weakness, and those who refuse to do dangerous scenes can be replaced by someone willing to take greater risks. This creates a cycle where professionals feel they have no choice. Either they accept the conditions imposed, or they lose their careers. One of the darkest aspects of this culture of silence is how accidents are reported. Many times, when a stunt performer gets hurt, the official version from the production minimizes the incident. Severe fractures are described as minor injuries. Surgeries and months of recovery are reduced to small setbacks. And in some cases, stunt performers are even instructed to lie about the severity of their injuries to avoid any negative impact on production. And what about stunt performers who simply disappear from the industry? There are cases of professionals who, after a serious accident, were never seen in film credits again. What happened to them? Some were sidelined and never found work again. Others accepted financial settlements and vanished from the industry. But there are also those who raise even more unsettling questions. What if some cases are so serious that the only solution for the studios is to erase these stories entirely? Many modern productions depend so much on action that stunt performers have become an essential part of filmmaking. Yet, they continue to be treated as disposable assets. If a star gets injured, production halts, press releases are issued, and everyone expresses concern. If a stunt performer gets injured, they are replaced, and filming continues as if nothing happened. This brings us to a fundamental question. How much has this culture of silence been used to hide something even bigger? If studios can manipulate how accidents are reported, what's stopping them from concealing entire tragedies? And perhaps the real reason we hear so little about stunt performers getting injured is simply because their stories never make it to the public. Stunt performers have always been essential to action cinema, but in recent years, a silent shift has begun. With advancements in computer graphics, many studios have found an alternative that eliminates a problem that has always existed: human risk. And if this sounds like a natural evolution of filmmaking, perhaps it's because no one is paying attention to what's really happening behind the scenes. With sophisticated software, studios can now recreate faces, movements, and even entire performances without the need for a real stunt performer. Where once a professional had to jump from a building or be hit by a controlled explosion, today, all of this can be done digitally. But what does this technology truly mean for stunt performers? The answer is more complex than it seems. Officially, these innovations were developed to reduce risks and make film sets safer. But there's a detail few people notice. If a studio can create a digital stunt double, it can also erase a real one. Now, imagine a scenario where an accident occurs during filming and the scene has already been shot. Instead of admitting what happened, the studio could simply recreate the scene digitally, replace the stunt performer's face, and move forward as if nothing ever happened. And this is not speculation. In Fast and Furious 7, after Paul Walker's death, producers used CGI to complete his scenes. If this technology was already used to recreate an entire actor, who's to say it hasn't been used to cover up stunt performer tragedies that no one knows about? Digital replacement also raises another question. Are stunt performers becoming obsolete? More and more dangerous scenes are being executed using digital models, eliminating the need for a real person to risk their life. For the industry, this means lower costs, fewer legal issues, and more control over the final product. But for stunt performers, it means something much darker. Their existence could become dispensable. There's also an aspect of this technological shift that's rarely discussed. Some studios have used deepfake technology to create performances without the full consent of stunt performers. This means that a professional might film a simple scene, only for their image to be digitally manipulated to make it look like they performed something far more dangerous than they actually did. Now consider this. What if a stunt performer died on set, and the studio simply recreated their performance digitally to hide what happened? Who would know the difference? This leads to another disturbing issue. If a stunt performer is replaced digitally, does their work still belong to them? There have been reports of stunt performers discovering that their performances were altered with CGI without their knowledge. Some didn't even receive additional payment for the use of their likeness. And as these technologies continue to evolve, this practice is likely to become even more common. The truth is that for major studios, technology is the perfect solution. With it, they can create stunning action sequences without the risks of on-set accidents. But at the same time, it also means that stunt performers are becoming increasingly invisible, and in some cases, disposable. If stunt performers are completely replaced, it would mean the end of a profession that has existed since the dawn of cinema. But before that happens, one final question arises. How much has this technology already been used to cover up what really happens behind the scenes? And what if there are already action scenes where the real stunt performer never even saw the final film because they were simply erased from history? Some productions seem doomed to chaos. From the very start of filming, unexplained accidents, technical failures, and tragedies begin to unfold, as if something were trying to prevent the movie from being completed. Coincidence? Or do certain productions carry something darker than just human error? Throughout cinematic history, there have been several films notorious for their history of accidents, especially those involving stunt performers. One of the most infamous examples is The Crow, 1994, known for the tragic death of Brandon Lee. But here's a detail that few people know. Before the fatal incident, other crew members had already reported strange occurrences on set. Equipment failing without explanation, unexpected falls, and even reports of a constant eerie sensation that something wasn't right. Another intriguing case happened during the filming of Mad Max, Beyond Thunderdome, 1985. During production, a stunt performer suffered a severe accident after falling from a motorcycle at high speed. The scene, which was supposed to be controlled, went completely off course, as if something had interfered at the exact moment of impact. The accident wasn't fatal, but it raised an unsettling question. Why do so many films in this genre accumulate unusual accidents? And what if they're not just miscalculations? What if certain films carry something that goes beyond what the industry can explain? Some believe that certain productions are marked by a kind of dark energy, whether due to the themes in the script or the locations where they are filmed. The Omen 1976, for example, is one of the films with the highest number of strange events associated with it. Plane crashes, lightning strikes hitting crew members, and even trained animals suddenly going out of control. But the strangest thing is that, in these films, stunt performers are among the main victims. They are the ones who suffer the most injuries, who experience the most bizarre incidents. Some say this happens because they are the ones who push the limits of reality. After all, they are the ones facing real danger while the audience watches the illusion of safety. In the case of Poltergeist, 1982, the number of accidents and deaths associated with the film was so high that many began to consider it cursed. And once again, reports indicate that the most problematic scenes involved stunt performers and action sequences. Could it be that something about these productions attracts tragedy? Or do these films reveal something that the industry prefers not to discuss? And the most terrifying part, on some of these productions, accidents were simply ignored. If a stunt performer was seriously injured, the solution was to replace them without anyone knowing. In extreme cases, when a tragedy occurred, studios made sure the stories never leaked. The lingering question is, how many of these stories never reached the public? With each new case, the doubt grows. Is there something behind these patterns? Do certain films really attract accidents in an unexplainable way? Or are studios simply using mystery as a cover to hide a far more uncomfortable truth? That these accidents could have been avoided if safety on set was taken more seriously? At the end of the day, the question remains, are these films cursed? Or is there something Hollywood doesn't want us to discover? Hollywood has always been surrounded by mysteries, and some of them extend beyond what happens on set. Over the years, rumors have emerged suggesting that certain accidents weren't just tragedies, but part of something much bigger and darker. Secret societies, pacts of silence, and strange rituals are frequently mentioned in theories that suggest some of the incidents involving stunt performers may have been more than mere misfortunes. But is there any truth to this, or is it just speculation? To understand this connection, we need to examine the patterns. If accidents in Hollywood are so common, why are some quickly forgotten while others become legends? More than that, why do accidents seem to happen with unsettling frequency in certain films? Some believe that certain studios follow an unofficial code, where sacrifices, direct or indirect, are part of the power culture within the industry. For decades, rumors have swirled linking big names in cinema to secret groups. It has long been speculated that producers, directors, and high-ranking executives are part of organizations that operate behind the scenes, far from the public eye. Some of these groups are real, like the famous private clubs frequented by entertainment moguls. But what if these meetings go beyond simple business deals? Some theories suggest that certain accidents may be more than just coincidences. Films marked by inexplicable tragedies, stunt performers suffering severe injuries without anyone taking responsibility, stories of professionals who vanish from the industry without explanation. Could some of these tragedies actually be part of a much larger system, where lives are seen as expendable? There have also been strange reports from film sets. In some productions, crew members have spoken about enigmatic symbols found behind the scenes, objects mysteriously left in odd places, and even bizarre events occurring just before accidents. In the case of Rosemary's Baby, 1968, for example, the film became infamous for a series of tragedies that struck those involved in its production, fueling theories that there was more at play than mere bad luck. But the most chilling theory suggests that, in some situations, certain stunt performers may have been chosen for a far greater role, without ever realizing it. If the entertainment industry truly hides secrets that cannot be revealed, then who better to bear that burden than those who are already invisible to the general public? The most disturbing part is that there are never any concrete answers. Whenever a stunt performer dies or disappears, the official story is always the same: a tragic accident. No in-depth investigation, no major uproar. Just a brief statement before everything is forgotten. But if Hollywood has taught us anything, it's that nothing happens by chance. So the final question is, are these patterns mere coincidences? Or do Hollywood's backstage corridors conceal something much darker than we can imagine? The world of cinema is filled with secrets. Behind the biggest productions, there are stories that have never been told, tragedies that have been silenced, and patterns that suggest something far greater than mere coincidences. Stunt performers, those who risk everything to create the perfect illusion, remain the most disposable parts of this machine. When an accident happens, the industry moves quickly to ensure that the show goes on, even if it means erasing names, manipulating information, and rewriting history. If there's one thing Hollywood teaches us, it's that nothing is as it seems. Some truths are so unsettling that they never reach the public. But from time to time, fragments slip through the cracks, raising questions that may never be answered. How many stunt performers have truly paid the price for the entertainment we consume? And how many mysteries still lurk behind Hollywood's closed doors, waiting to be uncovered? This story is just one piece of the puzzle, and one day, you might see the whole picture. If this made you think, subscribe and like the video. It helps the channel grow. And don't forget to share it, because more voices mean more discoveries.